Chapter 1 Destructive Decisions. Expelled! There's a ringing in your ears. The envelope drops to the floor, and you vaguely hear Lysander hooting for a treat. But your vision is blurry, save for the jet black squiggles on the letter's cream colored surface. Only that word is decipherable, bold and steady, a taunt. Expelled! This is it. They're kicking you out. You blink. Try to breathe and move your eyes across the writing, as if doing so will make the bad news better. We regret to inform you. Now there's a rush of anger. No, they goddamn don't. You've been a thorn in your headmaster's side since first stepping over Salem's marvelous marble threshold, and they're only too happy that you finally fucked up enough to be let go. It was a fuck up. There's no way around it. You screwed up big this time, huge, and your mom's going to be absolutely furious. Salem School for Witches is one of the best magical academies in the country, after all. So much for that opportunity. But you weren't trying to get expelled. You'd simply stopped caring. You ended your 6th year having done all the required coursework and taken the tests, and you've recently come of age. Sneaking up to the towers after curfew to get drunk didn't seem like the worst idea in the world at the time. But maybe attempting a fire spell while absolutely wasted was. Many a witch and wizard have died from attempting to create fire out of newspaper and thin air, especially the drunk ones. Widespread documented cases of that very occurrence. Yep, swear to God. Okay, all right. So it's not the most volatile spell, which only makes your botched attempt all the more fascinating and embarrassing. A third of Salem's tower wall was blasted away, which instantly attracted a lot of attention to a very incriminating scene. 10 broken bottles of fire whiskey, 4 passed out, slightly singed students, 3 of whom were boys, and a number of less than legal items. And you, swaying and bewildered, standing over it all, smoke still screaming from the tip of your wand. You were suspended immediately, long-term action pending, but it's not pending anymore. Expelled. Jesus! What is your mom going to say? Heaving a sigh, close to tears but too stubborn to admit it, you slump downstairs with the letter in hand. This is going to be a fun conversation. Severus Snape isn't exactly looking forward to the next academic year. Last term was straining, to say the least. That mess with Black's escape from Azkaban, not to mention the werewolf's presence on the grounds, Snape is tired, mentally and emotionally from it all. And summer has flown. Suddenly it's cresting August, and autumn leaves will soon start to fall. But will the subsequent year be any better? Any calmer? Any less frantic? Definitely not. No. Instead, the castle will be teeming not only with Hogwartsians, massive dunderheads, but with insipid French and hostile Bulgarian dunderheads as well. Oh, yes. And Karkaroff will be there too. Bloody excellent. It seems nowadays that the harder Snape tries to forget his past and everyone in it, the more often they spring out of the woodwork to taunt him. And of course, Harry Potter. The most glaring taunt of all is the catalyst wherever trouble goes. But that brings up one and only bright side to the Triwizard Tournament being held at Hogwarts this year. At the very least, amidst the hullabaloo these ludicrous games will generate, Potter will not be the center of attention. At least Snape will be able to occupy his thoughts with something other than the dark occurrences surrounding Lily's son. And perhaps the boy's incredible ego will take a blow from it. Perhaps he'll even manage to keep his foolish nose out of other people's businesses. No, that last is entirely too much to hope for. The shrill whistle of the teapot shakes Snape from his reverie, and he closes the book he abandoned on his lap, rising from his worn leather armchair to head for his cramped kitchen. He's prepared a brew, already sitting in a strainer at the bottom of his teacup, that might help him sleep, recover some of the energy he's lacking. Pure and simple rest is the strategy this week, now that his lessons plans are complete. Next Monday, he'll be apparating to Hogsmeade, and if he's fatigued, then, as he's felt for the entire summer, things might go sour rather quickly. Snape watches steam drift up from the flow of the water he pours into the mug, the vapors of the heated herbs already soothing his overactive head. He raises the cup to his nose, breathing deeply, trying to infuse the concoction with the power of running through his fingertips. The world of potion making can be extremely specific, with drastically different results from something as small as stirring clockwise opposed to counterclockwise. But he likes the subtleties, and he likes that brewing can be vaguer, more shadowy, and propositional. This base sleeping draught, for example, has simply been thrown together with herbs from his store, and he is eager to discover its effects. What kind of sleep will it be? Dreamless, vivid, lucid, deep? He tips the cup to his mouth. A shock of pain streaks through his left forearm, and it startles him so profoundly that he lets go of the mug. The tea crashes to the floor, spraying hot water and soggy herbs all over the shins of his dark slacks. Confused, angry, and more than a little worried, Snape rips up his sleeve and stares, hardly believing his eyes. His dark mark. Is he imagining it? Or is it darker now than it was a few days ago? Usually it's a mere scar, light even against the pale of his arm. But now, is it a bit more than a bruise? And the pain, was it simply some kind of nerve spasm associated so deeply with the mark that he saw something which wasn't there? He can't imagine, can't even begin to imagine that the snake was really just wiggling on his arm, moving its head in and out of the eyes of Death's head. His mark had been inactive since the Dark Lord's fall. It never twinges, moves, or even itches. So what the hell was all that about? If he didn't imagine it, he doesn't want to think about the consequences. Does it merit a letter to Dumbledore in any case? Moving back into his study, tealess, irritated, and thoroughly unnerved, Severus grabs a dark bound notebook from his desk and sinks into a chair. No, the headmaster doesn't need to hear about it every time he has a pain in his arm. But he thinks he should record the occasion, lest it prove be significant. Just the date, the time, a brief description. He looks down at his dark mark again. He used to like it, back when he first got it. Foolish naivety of youth. But needless to say, now it's a stigma. It doesn't allow you to forget. Snape has considered a particularly strong self-inflicted obliviate countless times, just to erase the memories of the past. But while the tattoo still mars his skin, he knows he will always recall. As you deserve, it should haunt you for the rest of your life. He sits in silence for a long moment, eyebrows deeply furrowed, telling himself everything is all right. It was a nerve pain or the like. If the same thing happened in his right arm, he wouldn't think twice about it. And the illusion of movement in his mark was simply caused by the shadow, by the rippling of tendons under his skin. There is nothing to be concerned about. Ah! The sound of his own exclamation surprises him nearly as much as the sudden throb in his arm. He lurches forward in the chair, grasping the base of his elbow, focused all his attention on the writhing snake, on the powerful, if brief, rush of pain. This is not his imagination. He flies quickly from his seat, upsetting the inkwell balanced on the armrest, and strides to the window to rip open the curtain there. He furiously searches the dark skies, wondering if the sign will be there too. But no movement mars the purple blue of the clouds. No unnatural magical light has been projected against the atmosphere to announce the presence of the once proud Death Eaters. Snape lets the drape fall from his thin fingers and presses them against his forehead, his eyebrows furrowed. He drops his gaze to his forearm, but the snake doesn't move again. What's going on? Things like this are not happenstance. There has to be a reason. Snape turns on his heel in a flash, a bolt of insight, making him rush to where he discarded this morning's profit on the side table. What day is it? The front page news tells him what he needs to know. Of course, Quidditch World Cup was today, the largest multinational collection of witches and wizards for 4 years. The perfect place to do a little bit of terrorizing. Ideal for attention-loving Death Eaters wishing to inform the world that they were still among them. Was someone trying to call comrades? If so, the attempt was botched and greatly rushed, sloppy. But surely a sign of one of the Dark Lord's supporters. Only they can summon each other. A deep, ominous feeling comes over him. Then, one that is becoming more and more frequent over the past months. Dread. Slow, creeping dread. Sneering despite himself at the smiling faces on the cover of The Prophet, wondering if there aren't screaming, terrorized Quidditch fanatics somewhere in Britain. Snape throws the newspaper in the bin. He sits heavily at his desk, reaching for his quill and a long sheet of parchment, and starts strategizing exactly how he's going to tell his phrase to Dumbledore. Just like your mom, always leaving things to the last minute. You haven't heard your father in person for 5 years, yet he still thinks he has the right to act as though you were close. When you stumble off the plane in Heathrow, for instance, he nervously fumbles towards you, this big, goofy grin on his narrow face, and he enfolds you in his freakishly long arms. This isn't so bad, but then he starts cooing about how much you resemble your mother, how beautiful you are, how proud he is of your academic success so far. You found a long time ago that school is one of your talents. It comes naturally if you forget those extracurricular mishaps. Your father takes your talent as his personal strength, as though it reflects his astonishing paternal techniques. No. Now, really, that isn't quite fair. Most likely, he takes it to mean that he's an extremely gifted, mighty wizard, and he passed on this trait to his only child. This terrible thing is that you can't entirely discount this. Your mother and relatives on the side that are no matches, after all. You only have your father to thank for any raw genetic power. Too bad he's never interested in fostering a relationship with me. You really have no desire to be here with him at all. You haven't seen him regularly since you were 5, staying in Britain when your mom moved to America, and you stopped missing him long ago. It isn't your choice to come to England. You'd much rather be home. But your mother was very firm. You're an adult now, she said harshly when you told her about the expulsion. So why are you still acting like a child? And you're a witch. I don't want to know what could happen if you became a delinquent, much less run around with a wand, but no school to keep you grounded. I don't want to do this to you. You need to learn a lesson. I'm sending you to live with your dad. At the time, it felt like being put on death row. Now, with your dad chattering in your ear, it feels more like 25 to life. He hasn't managed a single visit in over 4 years, refusing to use no match technology or get on a plane, and you've gotten fairly bitter about it. But he has a point in the last minute thing. School only starts in a few days. You'll barely have enough time to shop for supplies, much less get acquainted to England. You look over at your dad, who is grinning in a surprisingly endearing way. Indeed, he hasn't stopped smiling since you got off the flight. That was an hour ago. And after a brief lunch in a tiny tavern, you're walking side by side down a cold, wet, but absolutely charming lane lined with pubs and bookstores. I wanted to say goodbye to my friends, is all you can think to say. Your dad's smile falters as he looks down on you. I'm sorry, love, he says earnestly. I know it wasn't your choice to come here, though I can't say I don't love seeing you. I know, you mutter, totally at a loss. Your father really is trying, you can see it, but bitterness remains, coating the back of your throat, making your tongue sharper than it should be. You have to keep swallowing jabs at him. Much as you don't want him to understand your pain over his absence, you don't want to blatantly hurt him. And you'll like Hogwarts, I think, your dad continues, scratching at the light stubble around his chin. He's grown out his hair a bit, and it's easy to see how closely the color and thick strands match yours. I did. Best 7 years of my life, really. If you get into Gryffindor, tell the fat lady hello from me. His crooked smile tells you you're supposed to giggle or something. Instead, you shoot him a blank look. What's Gryffindor? Some kind of club? He chuckles. No, it's a Hogwarts house. Sort of an academic family. You didn't have those at Salem, did you? No, you replied sullenly. It's too small. You arrive at the diminutive pub, shabby and dim-looking, squashed between two taller, more modern-looking buildings on either side. Not that London is particularly modern when it comes to architecture. The sign above the pub's entrance proclaims that it's called the Leaky Cauldron, which seems rather conspicuous for a wizarding establishment on a no-match block. It's probably hidden visually from them. Your dad steers you forward as he continues to explain the stupid housing system. You weren't particularly excited about it. There are four of them: Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, Slytherin, and Ravenclaw. He pushes open the establishment's grimy wooden door and ushers you into the dark bare room, lit only by a candle and absolutely vacant, save for a couple of hunched barmen polishing bottles. You'll probably get sorted into one for the year, so you'll have a dormitory to sleep in. I don't know, really. I'm not sure what they do with transfer students. You have to subdue some biting remarks about British educational naming conventions. Come to that, what kind of ridiculous name for a school is Hogwarts? There you go, being overcritical again. Hello, Tom. Your father hails the barman. Bald, broken smile, thin arms. He raises the glass he's cleaning in response, eyes darting curiously towards you. Your father wraps an arm around your shoulder, but you don't lean into it. This is my daughter. She's spending her 7th year at Hogwarts. Kind of like an exchange trip. Well, at least he makes it sound good. If you put it like that, this whole experience almost seems impressive. Like you're choosing to study abroad as opposed to being expelled from one school and begrudgingly accepted by another. You wave at Tom. His smile gets softer. Didn't know they did that here, he replies, his accent different from your dad's. Cockney? East End? Are those the same? Is that even his accent? Special exceptions, your dad winks. Special exceptions indeed. Your father's high-paying, respectable job at the British Ministry of Magic has a lot to do with your acceptance. Was he not an alumni, made generous annual donations, and kept on good terms with the headmaster, you probably wouldn't have gotten in. We're just going for her school supplies now. Only a few days until commencement, after all. Your dad claps his hand around your shoulders, and you grimace at the nodding barman, who waves you towards a door in the back. You're not exactly sure what to expect. Your father told you that you're visiting a wizarding marking place. All the stores clustered together, forbidden to no matches. In America, at least, in the large city you come from, Magical shops behind mundane facades and plain buildings along the street. You can shop for jeans and get potion ingredients in the same trip. You have a feeling this will be quite the culture shock. Through the pub's back door is a tiny courtyard surrounded by high walls, the dead thorns of scarce wild roses strung over the tops, shifting in the breeze. Moss creeps between the tracks and the bricks. You stand, arms folded across your chest to brace against the cold, as your dad approaches the far partition and taps it with his wand. Slowly, in response to his touch, the bricks begin to slide out of place, gathering themselves in a wonderful enchantment to inform an archway. You raise your eyebrows, impressed by the simple beauty of the ritual, and wait until the new doorway is complete. Then you get your first look at Diagon Alley.